Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up. Our first guest today is Dr. Brian Wachler, and he's here today to talk to us about his new book, Perceptual Intelligence, The Brain's Secret to Seeing Past Illusion, Misperception, and Self-Deception. So, Dr. Brian is an expert at human perception, and he has pioneered treatment in vision correction and has published over 84 medical articles and has delivered over 276 scientific presentations. He's a medical director of Boxer Walker Vision Institute in Beverly Hills and is a staff physician at Los Angeles famed Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He has been featured in all major news stations, including CNN, NBC Nightly News, Good Morning America, Today Show, and is a regular on Dr. Phil's The Doctor's daytime TV show. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Brian.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, Marianne.
Oh, it is such a pleasure to have you here. My goodness, what a profound book you wrote.
Well, thank you. We try to get some great information out to people to help better their decision-making and also have some great entertaining value in there at the same time, and I think it accomplishes that from all the feedback I'm hearing.
Well, and so for our listeners that are kind of new to this topic, and I'm sure many people are, so what does perceptual intelligence even mean?
Perceptual intelligence is how we interpret the experiences we have to be able to separate fantasy from reality. Another way to think of it, Marianne, is to have a built-in BS detector in our heads to make better, smarter decisions in our life.
Gosh, wouldn't it be fabulous to have that? I mean, and this book is the roadmap to do it. Well, and so how did you even get started as being interested in this topic?
I get the question a lot. So as an eye doctor, eye surgeon, how did I come up with writing a book about perception? And I really have to take you all back to when I was in 6th grade in elementary school when I secretly checked out from the school library Judy Blume's classic, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it's a book about coming of age for teenage girls. And I was just curious how the mind of the opposite sex works. So that was my interest. I was just curious. Fast forward to UCLA, I'm a student, and I'm a psychobiology major at that point because I wanted to better understand the inner workings of our minds and our brains. Then my career path took me to be a doctor and to be an ophthalmologist. And in 2014, I was in Sochi, Russia, and I was there to support my patient and dear friend, Stephen Holcomb, who had an eye disease called keratoconus, which causes a lot of vision distortions. And he is the U.S. Olympic gold medal bobsled winner and was the champion from the 2010 Sochi Olympics after I had treated his keratoconus with these procedures that I had developed. So that's why I was there in Sochi at the Sochi Olympics in 2014, and I witnessed there more than Stephen winning 2 bronze medals, but I also then saw how Vladimir Putin was manipulating the world's perception of himself compared to what he was really doing. And that brought me back to my psychology training and about perception, and that's when I started writing.
And that must have been a real eye-opener, and it sounds like it was just a catalyst for making this book happen.
It really was. That was the catalyst.
So you've written this book, and it's just packed with information for people to understand how perceptual intelligence works and how to identify it. What are some ways that this will help them in their life beyond that?
People have challenges with decisions because we all bring factors like emotions into our decision making. We also have our cultural background. We have how we were raised, our religion, even our DNA. And that can lead us off the rails with decisions and sometimes even lead us off a cliff. So it's not easy to be able to tease apart the truth of situations, to be able to then operate off of accurate information. And that's what the concepts in the book help walk people through. And for one, the top one of all those that I listed is really the emotions. Because when emotions are tied to beliefs, a lot of things can go wrong. And I'll give you a great example that illustrates that. There's a very funny comedy website called The Onion, and they put out a joke press release stating that Johnson & Johnson, the makers of Visine, have now come out with eye whitening strips. And this was supposed to be an entertaining, funny piece. Well, people, in all seriousness, started calling the company asking where they could buy these strips, and they said, we don't make them. Then people started calling my office because I had developed an eye whitening procedure for people who have bloodshot eyes from sun damage or yellow spots or brown spots on the whites of their eyes, and my staff said that these strips don't exist. Some people then said, well, can I just go out and buy the Crest teeth whitening strips and put those in my eyes? Mm-hmm. And they said, no, that's dangerous. Don't do that. But it's an example of how emotions tied to beliefs can lead people to make irrational decisions. And by understanding when you're having emotions behind some of the decisions and directions you're finding yourself moving in, when you identify that, that's where you really start to have the power to be able to pause, because you now have insight and you're aware, and then can evaluate if you're really working in the direction you want to be going in because of your emotions. But you have to be able to identify that.
Mm-hmm. How crazy for that to show up on your doorstep, though. You know, it must have been just an amazing thing having all these people call you, asking you about, hey, can we do this?
And these people, for example, they have a real valid reason, because I'm doing procedures to treat this condition, so I hear the stories. When somebody has discolored eyes like this from sun damage and they're bloodshot, or they got brown or yellow spots, other people think they're hungover, they're on drugs, they're tired, they're not healthy. And after a while, these questions really grind down somebody's self-confidence and self-esteem. So they're really feeling some emotional anguish from having this condition and really are looking for a solution. But this is when emotions, because of needs, can transform somebody's decision in any direction in a negative way if they're not aware and careful.
Yeah. And I've seen your segment, I believe it was on the doctors, where they kind of did like a before and after, and it was quite profound, the difference the gentleman went through having that procedure done with you, so I can see why people reached out. Well, and so when we talk about, perceptual intelligence, how does that relate with teamwork and winning?
There's a whole chapter about sports which describes this in detail, and when everybody is working on the same page and they're really working together as a team and in sync, as some completely dominating sports teams are. For example, right now, the Golden State Warriors, for the last 2 years, they've really been dominating basketball. And when you have that level of confidence that has come from what they've been able to accomplish building up to a certain point, there's a mindset and then there's an energy that gets passed between people. And it's like when I was at the Olympics, for example, too, you can feel an energy, and you can't measure it. You can't take a device. It's not like ultraviolet light rays where you can have a UV detector, but you can feel it. And when you have sports teams or even organizations or businesses that have that level of being in sync and the synergy, it allows people to really accomplish more than just the sum of the parts. But it works the other direction too. If people have the mindset of, there's no way we can beat this team, or we're not a good team, and you have that and you put that into your subconscious, it is literally just as contagious when you start saying that also to other people on your team. It's just as contagious as the flu virus, and it affects the subconscious. So there really is truth to when people think it will become it. And that's why there's that expression, the power of positive thinking. It really does make a difference. And it affects sports teams, but anyone else where there's a group of people, And that's how the perceptions, in this case, can become a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of reality.
Well, and since we're kind of talking about celebrities, how does it work when celebrities are pitching products and how we perceive all of that?
Celebrities wield a tremendous amount of influence because of what's called the halo effect. And that's where somebody who is admired or looked up to for a certain area of expertise, for example, they then have the ability, with whatever opinion they may have, that people will listen, even if it's completely out of their sphere. And for example, Jamie Lee Curtis, a well-known actress who ranks high also on the Trust Celebrity Index, and all celebrities have a ranking for the most part, and Tom Hanks has been number one for years, by the way, and if we have time, I'll tell you a really fun story with him after. But Jamie Lee Curtis was doing commercials for Activia yogurt, and the problem was the claim of improved digestion was false. So here what happened was a celebrity and a company hijacked the perceptual intelligence of a lot of people who rushed out and bought the yogurt expecting a benefit. And that was because of the halo effect of her influence. And we see this with celebrities all the time. Actress Jenny McCarthy, for a while, was saying that vaccines cause autism. And a lot of parents listened to her and didn't have their kids vaccinated, despite the scientific data showing otherwise, that there was no link between vaccines and autism. So that's the halo effect, and we even see it in current news with what's happening with the sexual misconduct of Harvey Weinstein, Louis C.K., and others, because when people look up to somebody, they're vulnerable to that halo influence. And that affects their perceptual intelligence in terms of able to separate what's real and not real. But I have to say right now, because we're seeing such an explosion of the media coverage, and I've always for years been a very big advocate of gender equality and female empowerment. I mean, even to the point, my last name, Boxer Wachler, my wife and I got married 24 years ago. We took each other's last names. So I'm one of the few men in the country with a maiden name. So I've always been very...
That's fabulous, though.
Yeah. Not many men are like that can boast that. And that was a long time ago, too, when I did that. But now, with all the media that's coming out and all the outing of these men, it's now making women much more comfortable if they're in a situation now, because they're so aware of it, of number one, saying no to a man, and then number two, reporting it. Whereas before, people were much more fearful of that. And so it's a fantastic time right now for female empowerment. And even though it's not a legislation, but I think history is going to look back and say this is getting close to the women's right to vote in 1920 or Title IX in 1972 that really allowed female sports to explode in schools. So I think it's going to be very transformative. We're already seeing it. And that's helping improve the perceptual intelligence of a lot of women out there.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, it feels like more and more women are feeling empowered to be able to say something, because it's there's a movement going on where it feels like it's a safe space for them to do that. And there's kind of power in numbers there.
Definitely. And it's interesting, Marianne, it's because there's a whole chapter in the book we talk about social influence, which is when people tend to do things because they're not confident in themselves, but they look at what other people are doing for cues on how they should act. And that's the concept of social influence. So now that women are seeing other women talking about this and going public with this, that's a positive social influence. Usually the concept's for referring to people doing negative things because of other people, what they're doing. But here this is a very positive social influence, which again is why it's improving perceptual intelligence of a lot of the country because of that.
Well, and in your book, you talk about how perceptual intelligence has been used to kind of steer the herd, and I'd love for you to expand upon that a little bit.
And that's exactly what social influence is. When people are not confident in themselves making a decision independent of other people around them, they do go with the flow and they follow the herd. And it's when you have insight to that process, that then gives you the power to be able to recognize, wait, am I wanting to go buy the latest, phone or a car or do something with my kids and buy something for them just because other parents are doing that? I mean, literally just this morning I had the conversation with my wife as to if, she was thinking about maybe we should get the kids a new iPad. And I was thinking, we have twin daughters who are 11 years old. And I know a lot of the other parents in schools have already gotten them even phones. And so I said, do they really need a new iPad? I mean, they have an old one that's a few years old. And we talked about it and, decided that, no, we don't need to just get them another electronic device, an upgraded one, just because other parents have gotten that for their kids. And so that was an example of, any parent is seeing that social influence effect, in their parenting for what they're going to get their kids.
Yeah, it allows you to kind of stop and just take kind of inventory of what's real there as opposed to what everyone else is doing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole philosophy on parenting right now that electronics are, in excess, I should say, really putting kids at risk for being able to develop true social skills, person to person, where they can understand empathy and have sympathy because they can see how someone else is reacting and be sensitive to it, versus when they aren't interacting as much and they're just playing on an iPad or playing games on a phone, and they are being robbed of the social interactions that are important for growing up and really being a socially responsible adult, because Facebook friends is very different than your real friends.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we have a whole generation that their self-esteem is built on likes and people commenting on whatever posts they have on social media, as opposed to having that personal interaction.
And then there's a whole other aspect of the parents who are being so protective of their children too, and if they can't as young people learn to overcome obstacles and adversity that life throws at them, how are they going to be able to do that when they're older adults, when those obstacles are a lot more serious than perhaps not getting a good grade and taking ownership of it, when those obstacles in life can be really serious.
Yeah. So, and to kind of switch the topic a little bit, so how does perceptual intelligence help us appreciate art better?
Perceptual intelligence is, when you're considering art, is, Picasso has a great quote about art, that art is really a lie, and it's a way for the artist to try to bring the truth to the viewer. And perceiving art, you're not seeing reality a lot of times because of the way the artist is playing with colors and shapes and images, but it's justified because in the end, the artist is helping you understand the truth from the artist's perspective. And that's what makes art so powerful for people, because it's not a direct commentary on truth, but it's using its means to justify the ends for the truth. And so sometimes having low perceptual intelligence regarding things like this is okay. Same with magic as well. And we talk about art as well as magic in the book. But magic is where we know that there's illusions, but it's entertainment value. where people sometimes get into problems when they think an illusionist really truly has special abilities, then that's where that can lead people off the rails a little bit too.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, I have a question in regards to all of that. So why do we hold on to our illusions?
Mm-hmm. We hold on to illusions a lot of times because it's comforting. It's almost like soul food, makes us feel better. And if we have the goal of understanding the truth and the reality, then we're going to be in a better position when we have to make decisions to make it on steady ground, not shaky ground. Mm-hmm. And sometimes illusions can cost people a lot of money. Bernie Madoff, for example, he had a multi-billion-dollar illusion for his investors. And there were some people who got taken in because they wanted to believe that he was the man with the magic with investing. It turned out to be a giant Ponzi scheme. And, there were some very intelligent, accomplished people who were part of his victims, including Steven Spielberg and many other very high-profile people. So when you have that open mind to not, in questioning and recognizing that if you're having an illusion because of what other people are doing, then you at least can take that pause and be aware and research and have critical thinking skills, because that's what underlies a lot of having good decision-making and high perceptual intelligence, is having critical thinking skills. And that means being able to take a pause when you're interested in going in a direction and it just feels so comfortable just to move there because other people around you are moving and have moved already in that direction. But you still should have that pause and take some time to research things. And, had people perhaps done that, for example, with Bernie Madoff, mm-hmm. they may not have lost, in some cases, millions of dollars.
It almost seems a little bit like he had the halo effect going on as well, because people were, it was kind of based on his reputation that they were, going, hey, this guy can make this happen.
Definitely. Yeah, that for sure there was a halo effect involved too. He had credentials and he was well known in the industry. So sometimes it's pretty hard to try to see through a veil. But I think it's always good to have that critical thinking operating in the back.
Well, your book really allows people to, like how you're saying, take pause and really look at everything that's being presented to them and make a rational decision on whether or not that's true or not.
Mm-hmm. We also see a lot of this ability that the book helps people with to make better decisions when it comes to the marketing that they're being a part of. And there's a great story in the book as well, talking about a type of coffee that people are really into nowadays, and it's called Kopi Luwak. And it sounds really exotic, and mm-hmm. beans do come from Indonesia. And this is how the coffee is made, is the beans fall on the ground, and a special type of cat eats the beans, and it passes through it undigested and comes out the back end. And by the way, somebody's got that job of picking out the beans and cleaning them. Mm-hmm. And the story, though, is that these cats have a near magical ability to pick the very best beans, which makes this amazing coffee. And that's why people are paying $100 a cup for it. Oh. So the reality is the coffee is good, but it's not going to knock your socks off. But it's an example of how marketing, especially when laced with a good story, can hijack people's perceptual intelligence and waste their money. So
it's almost like you need a penicillin shot with that coffee, right?
What was that?
It's almost like you need a penicillin shot with that coffee.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of the risk you take when you follow the herd. Oh, my God. Well, you said you had a story from Tom Hanks. I'd love to hear about that.
Okay, so I grew up in Los Angeles, and I was driving my mom's 1958 Nash Metropolitan, and this was in the 80s. And I was driving along, and we were in this area called Westwood in Los Angeles, and suddenly the car that electrical problem, and the car stopped, and it just rolled to a complete end. So, and by the way, it's a little 50s black and white car, cute little tiny black and white car. So I asked my date if she could go in the driver's seat, and it was a stick shift, and she pushed down the clutch, and the car was in neutral, and I start pushing the car from behind, and suddenly I hear from a few houses back in this residential area, like, "Hey, I'll come help." And I turn over, and I see Tom Hanks sprinting across the front lawns, hops on the other side of the fender, and starts pushing the car with me. And I'm looking over, and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, that's Tom Hanks." And he looks over at me, and he's like, "Cool car." And we got the car started, and we zipped away. And he was like, "Okay, great." And just like he ran back up there, and he was already, he had already done Splash and was well known at that point. But just for somebody to be so giving and in a way selfless at that stage especially, and just come run and help, I thought was just the coolest thing, and very deserving of being number one on the trust index, in my opinion.
Well, I'm sure after hearing this story, there are a lot of people that are just going to love him, even more than they already do. So,
right. He's I think as good of a guy as he comes across.
Yeah, good people for sure. Definitely for sure. Well, and so, and I think I have time for one more question. And we're talking about, I know in your book you talk about, how your gut plays a part in all of this, and so why don't you share with us about that?
So we've talked about on one end of the spectrum of perceptual intelligence, the critical thinking and analytical. On the other side of the spectrum is intuition and gut feelings, which is almost, if you think about it, the opposite, where you just have these feelings come to you or you have intuitions. And the two is the marriage that really makes up really high perceptual intelligence, is knowing when to evoke one and when to evoke and follow the other. So we have intuition because of perhaps our subconscious giving us information, or perhaps coming from another source outside that's giving us the information. And a lot of times people might be falling asleep or waking up or just in a quiet place, and suddenly this idea hits them. And so what we explain is that there's research to back up at least paying attention to your gut feelings, and not just discounting it completely, because one study, for example, that we talk about in the book showed that for gambling, people who gambled based on intuition were more successful than otherwise, and also with investing as well. So, and there have been a lot of people who really credit following their intuition, including Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, the Beatles, Oprah Winfrey, and investor George Soros. They all credit intuition to being a key part of their success. And in fact, when I was in college, I was on the debate team for 2 years, and we were driving back in a station wagon that had been donated by one of the alumnus. And it was coming, we were on the freeway coming back down, and we were zipping along pretty fast, and we were all packed into the station wagon, which had bench seats back then. And normally I always wore my seatbelt. Because the seatbelts were wedged in underneath the seats, it was just too difficult to deal with. But then sometime into the trip on the freeway, just the idea hit me to put my seatbelt on. I thought, okay, all right, so I'm going to listen to this. And I reach down and I kind of excavate the seatbelt from between the two seats, and I click my seatbelt on. No more than 30 seconds later, we blow a tire, and the whole station wagon is spinning around uncontrollably on the freeway, and luckily we don't flip, but we do go off into a ditch. Had I not worn that seatbelt, had I not listened to my gut feeling, at the least I would have been spun around like loose change in a dryer, but at the worst I would have been ejected from the window. And so that was definitely a profound example in my life of listening to my gut feelings.
I go by my gut all the time. I get it. I was on a trip in Ohio, And a friend of mine was like, hey, you want to go see a covered bridge? And I was like, yeah. So we're leaving, and I thought, ooh, I better grab my phone. And we go and grab my phone, and we go see the covered bridge. And then she's like, well, you want to go see the waterfall that's right over here? I'm like, sure. We end up getting lost in a 100,000-acre national forest, and I'm the only one with the phone.
Oh, well.
So
you had a feeling about you need to bring your phone.
Oh yeah, I was like, I think I really need to bring that, So it's funny when you pay attention to those feelings, how they really serve you.
Yeah, they really can. There's a funny story in the book. I won't give it away because it's just so funny about my wife when she had a gut feeling to bring toilet paper on a trip. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, and for our listeners,
it's regarding one of my daughters, not my wife, but
okay. Well, and for our listeners that are interested as well, you have a chapter that we're not going to cover here. That people have to purchase the book, but it's chapter 10. It talks about sexuality and perceptual intelligence as well.
Yeah, it's a great chapter, and it really helps people understand a very important part of their own lives and helps even outside of their lives in that area. So we'll just leave it with it's a great chapter, and the book is available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold, so do go get it now.
No, without a doubt. And Dr. Brian, where can people connect with you and be part of your community and follow all the great things you're doing?
We have a website for the book, perceptualintelligence.com, and we also have a Facebook page as well, Dr. Brian Boxer-Wachler on Facebook too. And then my practice website is boxerwachler.com.
Well, we'll have all the links here so people can connect with you and, of course, go purchase the book, Perceptual Intelligence. Dr. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It was a real pleasure, Marianne. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. We are going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Do you know that you can become a genius at any age? Do you know that you can change your life and create a brilliant life for yourself? Hi, I am Olympia LaPointe, an award-winning rocket scientist who you more than likely have seen on TED Talks, Impact Theory, and PBS. Check out my latest book, Answers Unleashed, The Science of Unleashing Your Brain's Power. Simply go to AnswersUnleashed.com books and check it out for yourself. You'll find the tools to help you create the life you've always wanted.
The highly acclaimed and newly released book, The Hand Part 2 by Lynn Van Praagh Grattan, describes the journey between a psychic medium and a family who lost a son. Messages from Beyond Eternity's Gate is of love and healing. For more information, visit www.lynnvanpraagh-grattan.com. That's www.lynnvanpraagh-grattan.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited to be introducing our next guest, Liz Josefsberg, and she's here today to talk to us about her book, Target 100, the world's simplest weight loss program in 6 easy steps. So Liz is a health, wellness, and weight loss expert with over 15 years in the industry. Liz worked for 11 years as Director of Brand Advocacy and a leader for Weight Watchers until she started her own consulting firm as a wellness expert. Liz is best known for her hands-on involvement helping Oscar Award-winning actress and musician Jennifer Hudson lose weight and transform her life. She also helped Jessica Simpson shed over 50 pounds of baby weight twice, and other celebrities that she's worked with include Charles Barkley, Katie Couric, and Amber Riley, just to name a few. Liz works with both high-profile talent and everyday clients in the areas of weight loss, balance, and nutrition. So let's welcome to the show, Liz.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my goodness. What a joy it is to have you here. And it's at the beginning of the year so people can get excited about making some really good changes in their life.
Yeah, it's my life's work, hoping to help people really know that this is doable and possible, and it does not have to be as hard as you might think it has to be.
Well, and that's so encouraging. And I'd love for you to share with us, how did you even get started down this path?
I actually started down the weight loss road because I personally needed to lose some weight and ended up losing 65 pounds myself. And I really was fascinated by the process and I had carried weight my whole life. I ended up beginning to work for Weight Watchers many, many years ago at the lowest level of their company, just kind of receptioning in their meeting rooms. I became a leader for them and worked my way all the way up through the company to the executive level where I was actually responsible for helping all of their celebrities lose weight. So people like Jennifer Hudson and Jessica Simpson, Charles Barkley, Katie Couric, they were all my clients when they were at Weight Watchers. And it just was this wonderful platform for me to learn about what a weight loss program and the science behind weight loss from such a credible, wonderful company. And from there, I jumped off and started my own company consulting all around the U.S., now actually even internationally, with weight loss devices and programs. I went everywhere from, Lifetime Fitness to wearable technologies and all around so that I could get a real picture on not just being a Weight Watchers expert, but hoping to turn into a weight loss industry expert and give people a true snapshot of what it takes across the board and what the tools are that they might leverage to make this program and this process, their own process, easier.
I think that we need that like yesterday.
Yeah. It is unfortunately such a huge problem right now in the U.S.
Well, and it's interesting, just as we go along our journey, I know for women as we get into, different shifts in hormones and, maybe for men maybe not being so active, we're all looking for ways to make adjustments to our weight or keep our ideal weight so we can keep ultimate health.
Yes, absolutely. And I have been working on weight loss since I was a child, really, and all through different decades. And now I'm in my 40s, and I help many clients who are in their 50s and even 60s. And that was the real goal behind writing this book, was that I kept running into people that thought the weight loss process was only about food and exercise and feeling very out of control. So I tried to kind of really make them understand that if they didn't address other things like hydration and stress and sleep, that they would really suffer, and even movement versus exercise. And they would feel almost as if they were doing absolutely everything right and getting no results. That's what I kept hearing over and over. And when we started to unpack the fact that pretty much of the entire U.S., they estimate 75% of the U.S. is chronically dehydrated, most of my clients, when we start adding in water, which is like the lifeblood of your metabolic system, that's your lifeblood basically, you are 60% water and your brain and heart are more than that. So, once we started to get people looking at things outside of just food and exercise, they could make some really big discoveries and start to see that weight coming off again.
Well, and that makes such a huge difference, being able to have some guidance, because I know which is fascinating, because there's always coffee's no good, now coffee's good, and all these varying, eat chocolate, don't eat chocolate, drink wine, don't drink wine. And so people get really confused about what to do. So I like the part that you talk about the water, and I'd love for you to share with us some thoughts on this. I know people that say, well, water's in my soda or water's in my coffee.
Totally.
So, I don't need to drink any more water. I drink plenty.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually asking, and yes, in a sense, they are correct. There is butter in their coffee, and there is water in their soda. There's also sort of, the fact is, I'm asking people to drink 100 ounces of water per day, which is totally just of water. I will let you, put in a coffee in there, maybe a tea, but if you think about it, most people are not drinking even remotely near that. So what I've discovered is people are drinking more like 30 to 40 ounces of liquids in a day, some of them being those coffees, teas, and sodas that are really dehydrating at the end of the day. Yeah. So I'm really focused on getting you, I understand that's a huge jump for people, but I can't tell you the difference in how you will feel, how you're, they estimate that your mood, your energy levels, your clarity of thought, all of these things are so affected by your hydration levels. And for me, it's like my most fun, week with my clients is when I layer in the hydration piece, because it so immediately impacts them in so many ways, so that it really is like, wow, this one simple thing, it has paying off and has dividends beyond what they ever thought they would feel from this one little thing.
It's amazing how one thing can make such a big difference. And I know you talk about another thing that we've heard kind of off and on, for some time is about sleep.
Yes. Sleep is something that is so critical. It is your body. You'll hear all of these things. It's very funny. You'll pick up a magazine and it'll say detox now, or, do this to detox, juice, cleanse now. And what people fail to understand is that we have a very highly efficient detox system in our bodies. We have liver and kidneys and all of these things that literally that's their job, and they do a very good job of it if we give them what they need. And what they need most of all is water and sleep. So sleep is when you actually rejuvenate and regenerate your body. Sleep is when you rebalance those really important hunger hormones. So the hormones of ghrelin, which I like to sort of teach people. I tell them ghrelin is the go-eat hormone, right? If you think it starts with a G, you'll always remember. Ghrelin gets out of whack by 15%, and then leptin, which is the hormone that says, hey, you're full, stop eating, it gets out of whack by another 15%. And suddenly you have a 30% gap in your hunger levels and your ability to stop eating. So I always sort of, even in the book, I've illustrated it as if you feel like a marionette, right? Like as if you're literally being controlled by something outside of you. You get up in the morning, you have all the best intentions, you're going to eat right today, you're going to go exercise, and suddenly you're standing in front of the donut cart and you don't even know how you got there. It's likely because all of these things are just completely out of whack, where you're being controlled by these high-fat, high-salt, high-sugar foods that give you the energy that you are actually looking for because you lack enough sleep.
It's interesting how these things affect, one thing affects the other. It becomes almost like a domino effect.
It's a huge domino effect. And I actually it's another illustration that I put in the book, and I think it's so important to think through how people learn. And that's why I had an illustrator illustrate all these concepts. So if you think about water and sleep and nutrition and movement and hydration, they actually all create almost like an infinity loop or an infinity sign. Mm-hmm. If one of them falls off, it breaks the loop, and all of them are going to start to decline. So, that's why I wrote this program, and I sort of wrote it in a way that I saw, 15 years of watching and helping people lose weight and keeping weight off myself. I wrote it in a layering way, right? So you don't start this thing all at once, which is a huge, huge error that I see in the weight loss market right now, is like people walk into a program, whatever it might be, and they try to change six things or 60 things in one day and eat things they don't even like, where I'm asking you to really take this one step at a time. So we're going to layer on, after we look at your nutrition, we are layering on the hydration, and then we layer on movement and exercise, and then we consider sleep, and then we consider, stress. And those things, they can't all happen in week one. So there's a nice little progression to layering on and layering into a healthier lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And so that way it's not, because it could be a little traumatic for people as they start to make these transitions. It can get a little overwhelming.
And that's what I saw absolutely chasing people out of their weight loss programs. They just couldn't feel like they were doing it or doing it well enough. And so they ended up just saying, well, okay, I just quit anyway.
Yeah. And then that starts that whole cycle of shame and, gosh, I didn't do it right or what have you.
Right. And that's the cycle that I'm trying to help people understand, is the guilt and shame are the things that are driving so many of the weight loss processes and programs at this point. Mm-hmm. I think about even like you use a calorie counting app, right? And you get up to your calories for the day, and if you go over even by one little calorie, it turns red. And it says like, oh, you've done something wrong. And that's the general feeling amongst people who've tried to lose weight in the past, is there's guilt and shame over carrying the weight or not being able to lose the weight. And what people fail to realize is that guilt and shame actually activate the reward center of the brain. So for me, my favorite reward is food. So that guilt and shame actually drives us to the thing we were trying to avoid, whether it be gambling or food or alcohol, whatever it is that we're feeling that we don't want to be doing, we do in excess.
Well, and I love how in your books you talk about fighting the temptation with habit. And I'd love for you to just kind of expand on that a little bit. And we've been kind of touching on it, but not quite diving into that.
Sure. So I try to take there's some habit science that's been on the rise in the last about 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. And what we've started to realize is that we live in, these habit loops. And they say that about 50% of what we do in a day is all just habit. And habit is something you don't have to think about. It's actually really smart that your body does this, because your body is helping you preserve very important decision-making space and makes you totally check out for about half of your day. So if half of your life is just habits, then half of your eating choices are habitual, or half of the patterns that are getting you in trouble are habitual. So I always notice, it's not really that somebody doesn't know that, eating a bowl of oatmeal would be better than a donut for breakfast, but they may have a really bad habit of just sleeping in or using the snooze bar, which, by the way, just is the funniest thing. The most stressful thing you could do in the morning is give yourself 9 minutes to think about when you actually have to get up. So, a lot of people are pressing that snooze button over and over, and they are, waking up late which is just a habit, right? So they're habitually late, and they don't have time to make the oatmeal or eat the oatmeal while they're at home. So they end up running late, stressed to work, and see a donut cart outside of their office, and then they start just grabbing the donut. So I like to approach weight loss not from, I need to give you a list of foods. I do. I give you a great nutrition program in there, but I think this is more about our habits. So I try to teach you that it's very simple if you will take a moment and really consider, what are maybe 1, 2, or 3 habits that are consistently getting in your way. It could be that being late, or it could be overscheduling yourself, or not taking a lunch break, or not bringing lunch, or getting overly hungry. It could be a myriad of different things. But if you approach it from there and you start to change the habits, that leads to what I've seen is lasting change. That's the kind of stuff where you lose the weight and you don't gain it back, because you're not just papering over your bad habits with a meal plan for a few weeks until you can't take it anymore and then just falling off. But instead, you're systematically going through, and then once you pick a habit, so let's say you are chronically dehydrated and your new habit is going to be to drink water, I really try to let people know that habits don't, old habits new habits have to be triggered, and old habits have to be eradicated. So I'm helping you understand that any single thing, whether it be food-related or work-related, can be changed by simply triggering the new habit. So I'll often have people set alarms on their phone, at 9 o'clock, 12, noon, and 3 o'clock to remember to get up and go get a glass of water. Because otherwise, the old habit of not drinking water is much stronger. So you won't remember to do what it is that you wanted to. And where that has often created a lot of guilt and shame, saying, well, why don't I do what's good for me? Why don't I drink the water? Oh, my gosh, I'm so mad at myself. I'm trying to say it has nothing to do with that. It's really simply about you have to trigger that new habit, create that new routine, and reap those rewards that you get from that hydration and feeling better and losing weight, having more energy and all of those things.
Well, and it really I love how you're putting this, because it's easy to take those baby steps to get to the place that you need to get, because it's a journey. It's not a race,
Yeah, and that I think I would hope that I love the way you say that, because so often people are just, all they want is like, I want a 10-pound weight loss in the week 1, and, how am I going to get that? And that's all I want to do is lose the weight fast. And I think that's just, to me, that is just sort of what's been built up in this sort of diet-centric, crazy extreme world, is that I would much rather lose 2 pounds a week and keep them off forever than do some crazy thing I'm never going to keep up with. I'd rather take those baby steps, unravel the habits that are getting in my way, not just now, but over and over and over, so that I don't have to do this ever again.
Yeah, it just makes it an easier approach. Well, and in your book, you talk about, and kind of segueing here a little bit, but you're talking about exercise, and I love how you put this. Exercise is about changing your brain, not your body. And that's such a profound statement, because a lot of us think it's just about, how the body's shaping up.
Yeah, right? Well, and that's what I realized. I'm a personal trainer as well. Now I'm certified in that, and I train people, and I have trained my own self, and I realized, number one, you can't outrun your fork. You really can't. You can get on a treadmill for 45 minutes and burn only enough calories to eat 3 Oreos, which takes less than 2 minutes in my case. So for me, that's not a really good ratio, right? So you're never going to be able to make big changes by thinking that you can outrun your fork. And that's where I find people really coming to me saying they want to do this because they think, this is going to be the magic pill that makes me lose the weight. And no, it's when you exercise, it's all about understanding that at some point during that exercise session, you're going to either want to quit or not want to start at all, right? Like, I did my exercise this morning, and there it was. I didn't want to go downstairs at all, and I had to push through what I call is an urge to quit, which we have all the time. We have them, but we don't honor them. But when it comes to exercise, if we feel that way, a lot of people give in. So I call, like, exercise to me is flexing the brain muscle and practicing not quitting when you want to, so that you can apply that into the food plan and all the other pieces of your life where, you know, you really need that muscle.
Yeah, it really, that way you're still moving forward and just kind of taking it one step at a time, because it's really easy to just get kind of stuck. And I think that's why a lot of people do, especially during this time of year, what a perfect conversation. You know, they do New Year's resolutions, and then it's like, maybe it's too cold in the morning, maybe it's too hot. You know, it could be, a slew of things, you know, not really feeling like it. I'm sore from yesterday, whatever the case is, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and so for our listeners that are just really having that tough time, I know you've gone over some things. What are some tips you can give them to kind of just stay motivated?
Sure. I think, honestly, there's a really great way to stay motivated is to keep a list of reasons why you want to do what you're doing. So, you know, I have a client who she's just doing so well, and we started out, and I said, you know what, make me a list of 10 things that you really want to do. And one of them was, you know, I just want to feel comfortable enough to go shopping with my daughter. You know, she's like, I've been hiding out and not wanting to go shopping with her because I don't feel good about myself. So I think those kinds of reasons, those really tangible things, and I would keep them in like the notes section of your phone or somewhere where it's always with you, because you won't remember those things in the moment, right? In the moment of being offered something. Yeah. So having that close by and really being connected to those things. And it's just so fun because now my client's down about 35 pounds, and she went shopping with her, you know, with her daughter, and it was a dream come true that she didn't think was ever going to happen again. So that makes motivation grow too.
In being able to do that. And what a great idea is making those notes to kind of keep you kind of in line, because it's so easy to feel like, gosh, I really don't want to do this, or I'd rather be doing something else, instead of keeping motivated and getting up and getting outside, you know? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things in your book that I love are these habit libraries that you have.
Yes.
I was looking at the one that you had for that talks about, like, you know, download a meditation app and practice deep breathing. And, you know, we didn't really touch on it a whole lot, but, you know, there's a lot to be said when we get into the chapter that has to do with stress and, you know, having more of a stress-less life. And, I mean, gosh, everyone's feeling that, you know, well, they don't have stress, but most people are feeling it. We'll put it that way.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing I think I've heard more than anything else through the years is that the reason somebody quit their healthy lifestyle efforts was because something that was stressful, you know, whether it was a work project or something that's happening with their family member or something, just something stressful came along, and what they said in their mind, even if it wasn't clear, at some point they said, well, I can't handle this too. So I'm just gonna eat that cookie, and that's gonna make me feel better. And it does. The cookie is high salt, high sugar, high fat, and it absolutely lights your brain up, and it gives you serotonin and endorphins. So you are not wrong to be using food to reduce stress. In fact, you're probably pretty smart. But if I could teach you the change of habit, to learn to put in, you know, a walk around the block or a deep breathing exercise, or to put your little headset on your phone and, you know, do a 5-minute little meditation instead of eating, imagine the weight that you could lose or the weight you could keep off. So again, it's just a habit that people have created to reach for food. And now food is so readily available that it just has become just so easy to reduce that stress with something that's just that they show you at the checkout of wherever you are.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really, I mean, your book gives such great ways to, relieve stress, to kind of get mindful, to kind of start these practices for healthy eating. And we didn't go over everything because, of course, people need to pick up their own copy of Target 100, and they'll see why that you named the book Target 100 when they get through it.
Yes.
So, but what final tips would you like to leave our listeners with before we have to let you go? And we'll definitely have you back on to talk about this again, because I mean, you've done so much research and you've helped so many people with this. I just want to make sure that we can spend more time next time when we get to talk.
I would love that. I would really love that. I would guess maybe the thing I'm most excited about in Target 100 is there's a chapter about support, and I wrote in the idea. As I was writing this book, I was thinking, what really made people successful in the past? And it was when I could create support around them. So, with Jennifer Hudson, we got 75 of her family members on, doing what she was doing, and they all lost 2,000 pounds together. And we got Jessica Simpson's family and friends together every Wednesday. I would show up in her living room, and we would sit down, and we would approach this with everyone in her circle. And they did it together. I was thinking about that as I wrote the book, and so in the support chapter, I wrote in the idea of a book club. So if you love Target 100, call 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever, 75 of your, girlfriends or coworkers, meet in an office. I wrote a 10-week program that you can follow in the book together so that you could all get well and healthy and do it together and sort of change this conversation of us all being sort of inside of our own heads about this, and say, hey, these are my goals. How can you help me achieve them? To the people who in your life that matter, because those are the people when you go to, if you repeatedly do family events and all of you are working on being healthier, you start bringing healthy foods to these things,
Gotta love that.
I really hope that people will begin to understand that not only, this book is for you, but you could build a group out of this book and really achieve some great things as a group.
Yeah, and be able to move forward. And gosh, I mean, wouldn't it be nice to just have healthier family altogether, healthier family
goodness.
And friends.
Right?
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Well, and Liz, where can people connect with you and be part of your community? And I know your book's available everywhere, so we don't have to worry about that.
It is.
Yeah, and congratulations, because
I'm so excited about it.
Books are such a great thing to move forward, and it's such a journey.
Yeah.
But where can people connect with you? And do you still do coaching work, private coaching?
I do. I actually, I've got a website. You can go to LizJosefsberg.com, and that's a funky spelling for everyone who's listening. It's J-O-F like Sam, E, F like Frank, S like Sam, B-E-R-G. So most people misspell it with a P-H in there. But I have that. I also have a new website that's launching called Target100program.com. So there you will be able to connect with me as well. And I have a digital program there that you can follow, a 6-week digital online program that you can follow. I do some private coaching, and I also am in the process of building out that platform to be able to help people create their own groups.
Oh, that's so great. And gosh, I will be watching what all the fabulous things that come off your website, because I'm part of your community. So I'm following you. I highly suggest everyone do the same. Yeah.
I'm on Twitter and Facebook on both Liz Josefsberg and Target 100 program. You can find me there. I just love. You'll see, I just love connecting with people in my community. So I'm very much active in there, and hope to see all of you and your listeners there.
Well, I'm sure you will. And, Liz, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I so appreciate it. Thank you so much, Marianne.
Well, that's the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.